Hello my dears and welcome to the Fruit Basket. Wonderful to see you. They're alive. They live to tell the tale. Isn't it wonderful? Both His Majesty and Her Royal Highness, his beloved daughter-in-law, emerged from the London clinic where they were in together. That's rather cosy, isn't it? And I hear tell that the King visited Catherine just before his surgery to see his beloved daughter-in-law. Not the wicked one, the beloved daughter-in-law. He spent 3 nights, she spent, 13 nights? A biggie, recuperating in the warm embrace of Adelaide as we speak, which is wonderful. I'm sure the kids will be a tonic for her, won't they, my dears? The kids will be a tonic for her, and they'll be being deftly looked after by William and also the nanny, of course, and the various kinds of help. Wonderful. Camilla was visiting the King day in, day out. One of the days she was in, out, shake all about. She came for several visits to visit her husband. Very close. But a vision of health, wasn't he, as he emerged? Actually, I thought that he looked a little bit younger and a little bit fitter than he did when he went in. I don't know about you, my dears, but he was glowing with handsome health. He really was. The royal prostate is battle-scarred. It is, but it's victorious, and that's what counts. All that prodding and poking that the poor kings had to put up with is over, isn't it? It could actually be an allegory for the relationship with his son, couldn't it? Prodding and poking and trying to get at him and be a royal pain in the ass. Well, not on your Nelly, my dear. The King, His Majesty, can deal with the likes of the Earl of Dumbarton, my dear. It's no biggie. It's no biggie. So restored and renewed. The King carried out, they say, about 516 engagements over 2023. Our 75-year-old monarch, full of vigour as he is, nearly 520 separate engagements. That's on top of the fact that he never sleeps and he works until the early hours of the morning, and then as soon as he wakes up, there's a great big red box next to him ready to go with all the work that he has to do. You can't sleep on that kind of job, my dear. And we're told that he could be out of action for a month, or perhaps has been advised to be out of action for a month, but I don't see it happening, my dear. I don't see it happening. I think that he will be sitting at his desk throwing a tantrum over some leaky pen as we speak. And that's Charles. As for Catherine, "It's me, Cathy, I've come home." She's gone all Wuthering Heights as she returns to Adelaide Cottage, returned to Windsor, which is exactly where she should be, isn't it, my dear? And when she left, she sort of scurried away out of limelight, as she should, and we saw Tashi Archer, her personal assistant, who was captured leaving the London clinic. We are told the Princess of Wales has returned home to Windsor to continue her recovery from surgery. She's making good progress. The Prince and the Princess of Wales wish to say a huge thank you to the entire team at TLC, if I may, especially the dedicated nursing staff for the care they've provided. The Wales family continues to be grateful for the well wishes they've received from around the world. And as I say, she will be relying rather heavily on the nanny, dear Maria Barallo, who was very much the Crawfie of Kensington Palace when they lived there. She no longer lives in-house, and that's been the way since they moved to Windsor in Adelaide Cottage, but she's always around, of course, and she has done a sterling job, hasn't she? Almost a decade she's been with the Waleses. A total rock, and I've got a feeling a lot more loyal than the likes of Paul Burrell, this kind of thing, and even a Crawfie. Time will tell. But she was Norland trained. She's a Norland nanny. She went to Norland College in Bath, where they have preposterous fees. Is it 36,000, something like that? They do all kinds of things: jiu-jitsu training, karate, and self-defense, along with changing nappies and discarding of poop and this kind of thing. But they are thoroughly trained. I wouldn't quite put herself in the heady heights of the category of a River or a Mary Poppins, practically perfect in every way. But I'm sure that with the click of a finger, everything at Adelaide Cottage is spot. I hope those of you that celebrated Burns Night enjoyed it very much, particularly on Saturday night when Alexa Chung was celebrating, and I wanted to drop it in there because On her Instagram, she provided some details of her celebrations with the likes of a few celebrities. This was at the Five Arms in Braemar. She was up there for supper and a ceilidh, and there was a bit of celebrity dotted around here and there, and James Nesbitt, for example. But one of them that turned up on the reel was the King's Equerry, Major Johnny. Must be enjoying a bit of time off while His Majesty was laid up. But he was certainly looking like the life and soul of the party, wasn't he, my dears? And I clicked through Alexa's Instagram. I like Alexa. I know she gets on a lot of people's nerves because she has been rather ubiquitous here and there. But I've met her, I liked her, and I do like her, and I usually find her quite interesting. And, for that type. But I did, I was clicking through and I noticed, this is no shade to her because this happens industry-wide. Did you notice the credits for this one photograph here? This is the kind of thing you see all the time now. They list the credits of the crew behind the team and the glam squad and the lights. On this it was, I think, 9, so 10 of them altogether, including Alexa, and then I'm sure half a dozen hangers-on in the studio or wherever it was. But doesn't it blow the mind that for that photograph, I mean, I could do that with a Polaroid camera, as I'm sure you could, as I'm sure any tramp off the street could, but it takes 10 of them, my dear, to create that. And in one sense I support the fact that it is creative employment. I totally understand the creative process and the inspiration behind it and everything, but on the other hand, there is also something creative about not relying on quite so much talent or crew to get a rather simple message across, isn't there? It just tickled me, I've got to tell you. Perhaps I'm turning into a sour old fruit, but fruit is as fruit does. And speaking of which, have you noticed my new fruit basket? I'll show you it in the next tip jar corner. I think they were rather ubiquitous, weren't they, in the 50s and the 60s, perhaps the 40s. Fruit adornments. I've seen lots of vintage fruit basket earrings and ornaments, and you do see them in bric-a-brac sales. The fruit basket was a sign of great exoticism, some sort of glamour. The objet of the pineapple in particular was one of those very expensive tropical exotic fruits of the season. But an enterprise that does not look so fruitful at present is Archewell. And we learn that Bennett Levine has quit. Another one. Has hit the dust, had enough. Pastors new. Bennett Levine, what a horrible name. No offence to anyone called Bennett Levine. Bennett Levine joined in 2021. And he was promoted to management. And this week he announced that he's leaving to join a film funding firm. Well, perhaps your Archewell employers are going to come begging to you cap in hand and be knocking on your door, Bennett Levine, for coin, for the filthy lucre, to fund their new ventures in film. Because we've got Kenneth Anger and Ken Russell and the creme de la creme, the new wave and the new scene of cinema coming your way with Meet Me at the Lake on the way. Oh, please. Meet Me at the Lake. Meet Me at Ricky Lake. Those two are chat show fodder. Meet Me at Ricky Lake is what we're going to be calling it henceforth. Do you understand? Meet Me at Ricky Lake. Go on, Ricky. Go on, Meghan. Go on, Haz. I ask you. Give me Meet Me in St. Louis any old day, my dear. Give me a bit of old Judy. Give me some Judy. Not this wreck called Rachel and Harold. But that's supposed to be on the way. As we know, we all clutched our pearls as Pearl was dropped. Any venture that doesn't involve them slagging off their ex-family is a complete flop and failure. And that is the trajectory that is going to continue. And I fancy that is why rumours are emerging that Netflix are getting a little bit antsy-pantsy. And this huge mega million contract of theirs might not be up for renewal because they're not sure they're going to get much return on their investment. My understanding is that they push and push for more dirt, because that's the only stuff that's got to sell. And, if they're getting pushbacks, Meghan and Harry might be trying other avenues, because who exactly is the major streaming rival to Netflix? Think about it. Who is the major rival? Paramount. And who was the boss of Paramount's guests of honour last week in Jamaica? The guest of Brian Robbins, so we're told, who flew them in by jet? The Harkles. They get in where oil don't. What have I told you? What does Mr. Robbins expect to extract from them? That is the question. If he wants the megabucks, and he's obviously a savvy businessman at the paramount of his career, what exactly does he think that he's going to get from them? More of their worthy drivel, more archetypes episodes. Who wants that? Nobody. So exactly what's round the corner. But as for Mr. Bennett Levine leaving and getting the hell out of there, this comes in the wake of last year's departures, where the internal content head, Ben Browning, left and he was not replaced. Farrah Taylor, who was the marketing lead there, left and was not replaced. And although there's been 17 or 18 departures during Archewell's short history at least, back in 22, it was Rebecca Sananes, who was the head of audio, basically Spotify. So we all know that that spot was doomed, don't we? For those grifters, as one of the heads of Spotify called them. And of course, Mandana Dayani left as president. So I realise that people come and go, and that's staff turnover for you, but the press are calling it a mass exodus. So perhaps they can take some sort of comfort from Bob Marley and his movie and sing along to that song, Exodus, as a salve for their bruised egos. On Monday, the High Court heard that Prince Harry wants another trial as soon as possible, they've been told by Harry's team. As soon as possible. I wonder why. I wonder why they need that extra money as soon as possible. The sheet's getting threadbare. The cars are Montecito. Prince Harry wants another trial as soon as possible against Mirror Group newspapers, MGM, and this was regarding the subject of phone hacking if he is not awarded appropriate damages following his High Court victory against the publisher in December of last year. Do you remember? When he was awarded £140,000. It's emerged that no agreement had actually been made with regards to potential damages for the outstanding 115 stories that his claim is comprised of, because only a few of them were addressed in the last hearing of that trial. And it's also emerged that MGN offered to settle his claim before the trial. And incidentally, he went on to win the trial, but it was rather painful for the likes of the Coronation Street actress, I think was her name, Nikki Sanderson, because it's also emerged that she was offered 160 grand to settle. She rejected it, but then she was dismissed. Her case was dismissed. The reason given for this was that it was out of time. She was too late to make a claim. And the poor gal is now being asked for £160,000 or more from Mirror Group newspapers to recoup its expenses, its costs that were lost. So that gal's in a bit of trouble, and I really feel for her. Harry came out in clover, but only to a certain extent, because it was made apparent in his trial that all of his claims weren't exactly watertight. Harry's lawyer, Mr. Sherborne, demanded £2 million this week from MGN towards the legal costs of bringing the allegations to court. Only a quarter of Harry's case has been determined. Remember, those 115 media articles are yet to be tried, and the High Court was told that Harry is prepared to return to the witness box if required. Yawnsville. Total Yawnsville. But he's on his mission, isn't he, to slay all of those dragons. So who can stop the hero has? Judge Fancourt, I love that name. Judge Fancourt will hand down his ruling on those costs at a later date. It goes on forever, doesn't it, my dear? All this red tape. Let's take a quick peek at the late Queen's great-granddaughter, who is 23rd in line to the throne, little Lena Tindall. Isn't she lovely? She joined Daddy Mike to raise money for the Rugby for Heroes charity, and this was a 5-kilometre fun run in Gloucester, which supports veterans who are adjusting to civilian life. And as I'm sure you're aware, so many veterans are broken, aren't they, when they return, I would say. That is, the majority of them are broken, and who can be surprised at that? With what they have to do and get on with and see. So many broken, fragile minds and people and bodies. So it's for a very good cause, and Michael is patron of this endeavour, this charity. He's patron. And his wife, Zara, was at Cheltenham Festival for the Trials Day, and she loves to wear burgundy tones and plums year after year to old Chelsea. She does. And this time she was wearing a plum Finchley coat by the Fold, and she paired it with her navy fedora by Somerset Millinery, and the boots were Regina heeled, and they were in the colour mahogany leather by Fairfax and Favour. We've recently come through the period of Holocaust memorial here in the Kingdom, and the Anne Frank Trust, UK, have said that they are deeply honoured to announce that Her Majesty the Queen becomes royal patron of that trust. Isn't it wonderful? Tim Robertson, the CEO, said, had Anne Frank not been murdered for being Jewish, she could have been alive today, aged 94. As we mark Holocaust Memorial Day, it's heartbreakingly poignant to think how much Queen Camilla's patronage would have meant to Anne. A passion for royalty was one of the hobbies that gave Anne hope and happiness during her 2 years in hiding from the Nazis. It's tremendously heartening to know that we have Her Majesty's support. And here you will see picture cards of Princess Elizabeth of York, as she was before she became Queen, on Anne's bedroom wall, on Anne Frank's bedroom wall in the secret annex. Isn't that something? The secret annex of the young Annalise Marie. I never knew she was a fan of royalty, but I think that illustrates to you what royalty means to so many people, not just here in the kingdom, but all over the globe, as you and my international fruits tell me all the time. And whether you're from the Anglosphere or emanate from these shores in the empire or not, it has astonishing reach. Little Jewish girl. Loved looking at her little photographs of Princess Elizabeth of York on the wall, not knowing what life should go on to lead. But I find it very moving. And the Holocaust Memorial Day Trust also shared a photograph of Their Majesties lighting candles at Sandringham earlier in the week to mark the commemorations. And Rebecca English, who is the royal editor at Mail Online, she recalled how 8 years ago, a tearful Camilla, she said there were tears and her face was blotted with mascara running all over the place. She met with her, and at this time Camilla was performing in her role as Camilla Cornwall. She was yet to become queen, but she would do anything within her power to help victims of domestic violence. Rebecca English says she was mascara-streaked and had a determined gaze. She had been developing this passion to help those suffering from domestic violence. And the first 3 engagements of Her Majesty's year so far have been at refuges or projects that are associated with women's refuges, this kind of thing. Some of them have been in secret, the ongoing visits. And Hetty Barkworth-Nanton, who is chair of the Gaia Centre, another refuge, is not one to give out plaudits. She doesn't do it easily. You cannot extract them, but she has come forward to say how much she admires Camilla. And she says, Camilla was just as kind and empathetic as she was 8 years ago. She goes above and beyond. She makes a point of intimate conversations with survivors and then gives them a voice. And she has one rider. She says, make it about them, not about me. And she made a very good point that goes over some people's heads. Camilla detractors tend to think that the whole engineering of elevating her from being known as princess consort to queen consort to being publicly styled as queen was to do with her ego and what she wanted rather than what the late queen wanted, blah, blah, blah. We've been through this a million times. I do sympathise with those of you who feel they were lied to by Clarence House over calling her princess consort. You were. So I actually do understand why you might be angry at the way that unfolded. But I don't concur with those who don't understand why she is now referred to as the Queen, because any other Queen consort in history is referred to as the Queen, Her Majesty the Queen, like a Queen Regnant is referred to as the Queen, not Queen Regnant, everyone in history. And it would be totally incongruent and vulgar to keep churning out Queen Consort Camilla, Queen Consort, Queen Consort, Queen Consort, Queen Consort, ad infinitum. And I'd certainly get sick of saying it all the time. So that is the kind of thing that I have an issue with. It's just people who don't understand protocol, and no one would have understood protocol better than the late Queen Elizabeth. She would have understood when she gave blessing for her to be known as Queen Consort that not only was it not her decision what the new king decides to bestow upon his wife. It wasn't her decision. She's had her time. She's made her decisions. But she gave her blessing to Queen Consort, which also means she would have understood and known that Camilla would be then known as the Queen, just like the late Queen's mother, who was a Queen Consort, was known, and her grandmother. You know, Queen Mary, they were all consorts. So, sorry, but I have to reiterate this occasionally because you get newbies or you get people complaining to me about it and they just simply don't understand. But Hetty Barkworth-Nanton says that her response to hearing that she was going to be known as Queen was that this is not an ego thing for her. What this is about is enabling Camilla to do more and have an even bigger voice. And I think she's showing that. And it really does hammer it home when you see somewhere like the Anne Frank Trust in the Kingdom, you know, making an announcement, and they are able to put in big bold letters that we are being represented by the Queen. It does have import, and it feels more profound, and it feels like they are more of a royal couple and a royal pairing. And before anyone else pipes up and says, well, why wasn't Prince Philip a king? Google it. When I mentioned Queen Mary's doll's house a couple of weeks ago, I got some lovely comments from those of you who are very enthusiastic over the miniature world and have seen this doll's house or remember hearing about it decades ago, who have been intrigued. I didn't know, I knew about the doll's house, but I didn't know quite how intricate it was, or perhaps I should say how innovative it is. But the miniature library has had an update. It's been refreshed by Queen Camilla, and books have been added to the library. I think this is so fruity and so juicy and so delightful. The books are by contemporary authors. Some of them are brand new works in miniature, but they include Alan Bennett, Julia Donaldson, Anthony Horowitz, Jacqueline Wilson, the kiddies writer. And she hosted a reception for the authors today at Windsor. And it included Tommy Parker Bowles, her son, who, he writes a lot, and he writes a lot of articles about food. I really enjoy his writing, actually. But the one that he provided for this library includes A Recipe Fit for a Queen. That's what it's called. And when the doll's house was created in the 1920s, it was filled with the authors of that era. For example, Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, Thomas Hardy, and it was a gift from the nation after World War I to the Queen, as if she needed another gift. I can quite understand why anti-monarchists might choke on that. Oh, wonderful, we've just been through a war, but let's gift something fabulous to who of all people? Not the hoi polloi, not the commoners, but the Queen. Well, that's the way it goes, my dear. That's royalty for you. Take it or leave it. But the Queen has written an introduction by hand to the project, which has been bound and was presented back to the Queen as a tiny little book. How joyous. And Her Majesty hails the incredible richness of 21st century talent. She said, "For me, it is the library that is the most breathtaking space in the house. The house was curated by Princess Marie Louise and her friend, the author E.V. Lucas, who invited 200 renowned writers to contribute pieces of writing, providing an unrivaled snapshot of literature in the 1920s. And you can see it, it's on display at Windsor through 2024. And it's got working lifts, electricity, a fully plumbed bathroom, a fully strung grand piano, and so much more. The intricacies, the handiwork is all top notch, my dears. It is a labour of love that has delighted and enchanted for 100 years. And let's hope that it continues to do so for another 100, if we survive Armageddon. Thank you for joining me, my dears. I enjoy your fruity company very much. Thank you for your comments, and I will see you in the next broadcast. Take care and toodle pip.